Yeah, good morning. Hey now, PASW staff, clients, and friends joining us. Tuesday, Classical Tuesday. That's how we usually like to do it around here. Yesterday we looked at Life of Pi, your film scoring assignment. So get that into me by today. We'll see the results from Friday. That cool little underwater scene. Can't wait to see some magical results from you guys. That'll be really fun. Today we're gonna be looking at a really famous composer. If you don't know, you know one piece in particular for sure. I promise you, it'll put a smile on your face when we get to that piece. So I'm very excited to talk to you about an Armenian composer. Wasn't born there, but of Armenian heritage. Today we'll be talking about Khachaturian. Not chicken cacciatore. That's what you get in an Italian restaurant. Khachaturian, Soviet Armenian composer, conductor, considered one of the best Soviet composers. So by Soviet, we're talking about Russia, right? We've looked at Soviet composers before. He is. People describe him as having colorful harmonies. We're going to look at some of those harmonies and also rhythms. He really was influenced by folk music, Armenian folk music. We're gonna talk about what that means. Beautiful melodies. I mean, this guy wrote some gorgeous melodies, and wrote ballets, symphonies, concerti or concertos, whatever you want to say for the plural, and even film scores. Born in 1903. Okay, so he's a 20th century composer in Georgia, but not the Atlanta, Georgia. A country located the intersection of Eastern Europe and Western Asia, so that's where he's born. Let's look at our timeline. What other composers? I said we looked at Soviet composers. Probably the biggest one we looked at was Shostakovich. Remember Shostakovich? So this is the time under Stalin. So this is not a good time to be an artist, to even be a citizen, because of the oppression that was there, and the dissent and all these things. The horrible rules, and I don't know. It's not a political class, but I mean, it's just, as we looked at with the Shostakovich class, he had to censor his music. He had to censor his notes. If you wrote the wrong note, you could be killed possibly. So such anxiety. And then we looked at Shostakovich's wonderful jazz suites, where he wrote this kind of early kind of music that sounded like early film music a little bit. So he's going on. They know each other. Prokofiev was another composer that we looked at even earlier. Peter and the Wolf did some wonderful, playful music, but stays in pretty strict classical world of music. And then Villa-Lobos is up there too, because Villa-Lobos was very influential for using folk music, right? He was a Brazilian composer, but uses early bossa nova that we got into. But Khachaturian's he stays in Russia for the most part of his career. So his family was Armenian craftsmen. He was not destined for a career. He did not really get into music until much later. So unlike a lot of the other prodigies that we've looked at, he was a late starter. Not until about age 22 is when he started getting musical training. Think of that. I mean, we've looked at Mozart and Bach and all these geniuses, prodigies. By the age of 10, Benjamin Britten. All these guys were geniuses. This guy didn't start till age 22. Shows you it's never too late to start. So when he started that, he really flourished and really got into it. And then he moves to Moscow in 1921. So he gets pretty good training as a composer. Writes his first symphony, and it's Armenian influenced, and composed as a graduation work, and that pretty quickly drew attention from a lot of conductors and other composers to be performed a lot, and a lot of people started admiring his music, including Shostakovich. He wrote his first piano concerto in the 30s, and that was a huge success. So he starts becoming a pretty famous composer. In 1939, he takes a 6-month trip to his native, Armenia, and he makes a study of Armenian music and what that means, and folklore, and collects folk songs and dance tunes to incorporate in his music. So, I mean, when I say living under the Soviet regime is bad, what do I mean by that? I mean, he had an administrative role in the Union of Soviet Composers, and the government at some point in his career said this was politically incorrect music, and they didn't like this. Of course, this is the late 40s, and so Khachaturian had to make a very humble apology for his artistic errors following this thing. So, I mean, it sounds so silly to hear that now, but. And good thing he underwent no charges, though. But I mean, you could be charged for writing politically incorrect music. We take our freedoms today for granted. So, and he was sent to Armenia, though, as a punishment for this, and was censored still. By the next year, by 1948, he's restored to favor, though, and starts getting praise again for his music. And by 1950, he's conducting a lot and also teaching a lot of composition. So has a good life of teaching, conducting. Dies in Moscow in 1978. He just a long illness, so just short of his 75th birthday. So as we're listening to his music, we talked about his use of folk songs in his compositions, and Armenian folk songs. See if you've heard this one. This one is, and when I say that, I'll talk about a certain section, but see if you've ever heard this song before. Tons of fun, right? It's got such rhythm, and it's used in parodies and parodied all the time. When it comes to this section, though, listen to how it sounds like folk music, doesn't it? It could sound like you're going into the mountains, and there would be tribes and people playing tambourines and stuff, and it could sound folkish like that. That's kind of what I hear. His other really important work is 1941, so we're about 10 years earlier, the Masquerade Suite, and this was incidental music for a production of that same name. Spartacus ballet follows, it's the leader of the slave uprising against the Romans, and this, I mean, these melodies don't get much better. The melodies don't get much better than this. So that's a little taste of Khachaturian. I hope you liked it. I just thought it was a composer we should look at and talk about because his music is just so beautiful, so melodic. We're in the 20th century here, and he's considered in Armenia a national treasure. And he really is he's a national treasure as a composer who wrote wonderful, wonderful music, and fun music too. I mean, it was so much fun. So I hope you enjoyed that. Love you and miss you. I'm gonna see you tomorrow for something else that's gonna be fun. Okay, have a great rest of the day. Bye.